Welcome back to the channel. I've guided a few ice fishing trips lately, and the consistent question seems to be, how do I get started? So today what I would like to do is show you from start to finish how to get into ice fishing. Alright, so everything I'm going to show you today, I'm going to link down in the description. So I'll show you initially the cheapest way to do this. So you can go right to Amazon, and they have an all right set of 3 traps. It depends on where you fish, what the laws are. You could get started with 3 or you could order more. You know, some of the regulations in Maine, you have 5 traps that you can use up to. Some areas are 2, so this is a good start anyway. The unfortunate thing with these is they don't come lined, so you'd have to purchase some line to go with that. This is an all right line. I found that it does get tangled up fairly easily, but again, to get yourself started, it's a good line to go with. Another thing that you're going to need is some form of an auger. So this is a decent hand auger. It's on the cheaper side. It only gives you a 6-inch hole, which again, if you're just starting out, a 6-inch hole is more than what you'd need, especially if you're going after panfish or something like that. It is a hand auger, which makes it more difficult for sure to get through the ice. However, if you're trying to do this on the cheap, that's the way to go. The next thing you'll need is a little scoop. That will help you get situated, get the ice out of the hole after you drill that hole, and keep that hole clear for you. Now, if you're trying to go on a more reasonable route, but not overly expensive, I suggest that you go with a little bit better quality. Get yourself some jack traps, heritage traps, or Forest City traps. Those are local to me. I think they're good quality traps. If you are watching this and you have a different suggestion for the newer people, just drop a comment in the bottom. Give a good suggestion on where to go for traps. You know, I don't know every trap that's out there. I just think that those 3 that I listed are fairly good quality, and you can get them pre-set up, or you can go and get the line yourself. So again, I suggest that you get the pre-done reeled, lined reels. That will help save some time. You know, these heritage ones, they're reasonably priced, but again, you're going to have to buy the line with it. However, all of these don't come with leaders, so you're going to have to get the leaders for them. So you can go on multiple different places and you can get pre-done leaders. That's what I recommend right off the bat, and depends on what you're going after. You know, if you're going after trout, I stick anywhere between a number 6 and a number 4 hook. That's just my personal preference. It gives a good size, gives a good quality, and your leader, you want to stick anywhere between 8 and 12 pounds. That way it's not too big, but it's also not too small. If you're going after bass, you can go a little bit bigger of a hook set with a little bit bigger of a leader. And then if you're going after, like a pike or a muskie, you either want a steel leader or a really high pound leader with a much bigger hook. You're looking at a 0, 1, or a 2 for a hook for that. The next thing that you could do if you're looking for a better quality, and again, I stick to jack traps because in my opinion, they're good traps. You could get a better quality skimmer with a chisel on the end. And then this is on the lower end, and it's a 6-inch drill bit, but it attaches right to your drill. Just make sure that you have a better quality drill for this. A hammer drill works great, so if you already had a hammer drill, you're in the clear, and then you can attach that right to your drill, and it works like a charm. For the ones that don't have the line on them, this is a good quality line. It's a nice, thick, wax braided ice fishing line. It's a little bit thicker, so you have that better quality, and if the wind's blowing, it doesn't wrap it up and get it all tangled and all that. It kind of lays a little bit better on the ice, and it has a little bit more durability. If you decided to go the route of the traps that aren't pre-lined, I'm going to show you the quickest way to set them up so that you can get that line on them and ready to go. There are better ways. Don't beat me up in the comments. Everybody has their own opinion. However, I find this to be the easiest way for new people to get the line on their reels. So you start out with a perfection loop. I usually use my right hand, go behind, fold that in, pinch it with your left, give yourself plenty of space to work with this. Go in front, loop around. Now you have 2 loops. Take it the third time and go in between these 2 loops. Here's where it gets a little tricky. Pinch that down. Now come from behind your second loop and pinch that front loop, and you're going to go over that middle piece. Pull it tight. Make sure it's nice and snug. And then you have your perfection loop. You want to cut off your tag end. And when you're attaching it to your trap, each trap will have a tripper on it. So you see that metal piece? On the plastic ones, it will have a plastic tripper. You want to go in the direction that trips the line. So on this reel, the tripper needs to go this way to trip it. You take your perfection loop, get a piece of line, go through that, loop it around your reel, and you want to reel in the opposite direction that your line needs to go to trip it. So reel that up in this direction. I only have a little bit of line. That way when the fish catches it and pulls it, it pulls towards that tripper and sets that tripper off. One small thing that you want to make note of when you're putting this on the reel is you don't want it to go this way as it pulls. You want to double back on itself and go this way so it catches and pulls like that. So if I were to put this back on that reel, I want that to snag up on that and pull it this way. That will reduce its sliding in the future. Once you have all the line on your reel that you want, and before you go to the next step, which is putting this swivel on, you can either put a button on, like a regular sewing button, the ones that you have on your shirt, or I recommend that you go with a Maine Trout Whisperer line marker. These are a little more easy. You just slide them on. That locks it in place. You take it out of that. Then you can put them in this holder, and these float if you drop them in the water, which I like as well. Or you can leave them on the end of your line. I suggest you take them off and put them in the holder. That way your line doesn't get a memory. But again, to quickly get them on, all you have to do is put a quick loop there, quick loop there. That keeps them in place. If you want to secure it more, you can add another loop. Loop it in there, add another loop right there, loop that in there, and it won't go anywhere. And that's just to mark your line or the depth of your line so that you can remember where you're fishing at later on. Once you have your line all put on your reel, and again, you want it to pull towards the direction that's going to trip your tripper, you're going to get down to where you want your leader. So down at the end, you want to tie on a leader, and in between that leader, I always recommend that you have a barrel swivel, and I like to do with the snap. And that helps you if you need to quickly change out a leader, you can just pop that off, hook a new leader on, and go from there. So in order to get the barrel swivel onto the line, you're just going to have to tie a simple knot, and I'll show you how to do that. So put your line through the end of that, go around. I usually do 6 to 7 times depending on how thin or thick the leader or line is. I'll do 6 with that. And from here you can either do the improved clinch knot or just keep it at a regular clinch knot. So loop it through that, pinch down, and pull nice and tight. The thicker your line is, the harder it is to pull. So a lot of people will get it wet, get some saliva on there, something along those lines, and it will make it easier, and it will in turn make your knot a little bit stronger. So now that you have that on there, your line is good to go, and you're ready to put your leader on. And like I said, pick up a pre-done leader or something like that. It will come with a hook already on it, and you can just do that, and it'll make life so much easier for you. Once you've put your leader on, I like to go halfway, 3/4 of the way, and put a weight, and the weight size or the sinker size, whatever you want to call it, depends on what I'm going after. So if I'm using small bait and I'm going after brook trout, I just put a smaller one on there. If I'm going after something bigger and I need a sucker or something like that, I'll put a little bit larger of a weight on there. And then you get down to the end, and like I said, depending on what you're going after, I use a size 4 to 6 for trout and 0 to 1 if I'm going after pike, something like that. Once all that is set up and you're ready to go fishing, you're going to have to bait your hook. Now you can use a worm, or if the area allows it, you can use live bait. So I've got this nice frozen, dried out little guy right here. The couple places I suggest that you bait your hook is on the back of the fish. There's a dorsal fin, and just below it is his spine. You want to go a little bit below that, so right in about this area right here. Hook it all the way through, and that will let him be able to swim around, and the fish will come up and take it whole and hook themselves onto that. Or you can hook it through their mouth. They can swim along just like that, and the fish will come up, take it like that, and it will hook them right in the jaw. Now that we've covered the basics for the gear that you need, let's go into clothing. So the first thing that you're going to want to wear is a nice synthetic layer. You want your synthetic layer to be your base layer that touches your skin, and you want it to be moisture wicking. On top of your synthetic layer, you want either a wool or a fleece. I prefer wool, and I prefer merino wool. On top of my first wool layer, I'll either add another wool layer or a fleece layer. What I have on is a fleece layer, and that keeps me fairly warm throughout the season. When it dips down to the colder temperatures, I'll add on top of this layer another wool or fleece, and then on top of that, I'll add a synthetic sweatshirt. You want to stay away from cotton. Cotton is not a very good material when it comes to being outdoors. If it gets wet, it holds the cold, and it doesn't get rid of that excess moisture. For the outer shell, you want something that is synthetic again, that is water resistant or waterproof, and keeps the wind, rain elements. You want to keep all of those off you. To further keep the elements off you, you want to add a face covering, and you want, again, a nice hat. I like to go with a nice wool hat and stay away from that cotton style hat. You want to do the same for all of your layers. So when you're dealing with your socks, you want to do your synthetic, then you want to do your wool, and you want that water resistant exterior shell. So I like using a muck boot, something like that. Same thing with your gloves. You want your synthetic layer, a wool layer, and then on the exterior of that, you want that water blocking exterior shell. Some decent brands that I'll throw out there. You have your -33 merino wool, your Vertex. I prefer LL Bean. It's local. I like to shop local, and brands like that. You can go into a million different brands out there. They all are good as long as you stay off that foundation of synthetic for the base layer, wool or fleece for the middle layer. If you need to add more to that, add more wool, add more fleece. And then your outer shell, you want that to be an impermeable type material that's waterproof, water resistant. Now that we have clothing covered, let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this. We'll head outside, we'll try and get some fish caught, and we'll try and get some holes dug. Now that we have our basic gear covered and we have our what we need to wear for clothing covered, we're gonna pick a spot. And whether it be local to you or a spot that you've always wanted to go to, what you should do is pick a depth chart off the internet. Every state has them, and then pick what you're going after for the fish that you want. So for example, I'll go with brook trout or landlocked salmon in this body of water. What you want to do is, if you can use live bait, pick up the one that matches best to what they're going after. So in this body of water, we're looking at rainbow smelt, or we're looking at a golden shiner, regular shiner, whatever it may be. If you can't use live bait, you want to pick an artificial lure that pretty closely mimics those. So, a rainbow smelt, you want something that's silver and blue. A golden shiner, you want that golden silvery hue to that. Another thing that I always heed warning to is your plastic baits. A lot of times they'll bite the end of those off and it will get stuck in the stomach. A fish can't digest those plastic baits, so I always suggest staying right away from them. Once you've picked out your bait and the fish that you want to go after, you can look on pretty much any inland fisheries and wildlife, or whatever you call it in your state, and they'll give you a rough guideline of where you want to fish. So for example, in Maine, if you're going after brook trout, you want to be anywhere between 7 and 15 feet of depth. And it can vary each body of water. Try not to pick it too much apart, but you want to fish in that area and you want to fish just below the ice. If you're going after a different species, it varies. And again, take a look at your wildlife management sites, and they'll better guide you towards your area. You want to double check and make sure that you are following the laws of that body of water. Every body of water seems to have a different law, so make sure that you open up your law book, the current year's law book, and double check, can I have this many traps? Can I use live bait? Double check every law that you possibly can to make sure that you're doing everything legally. Now that we've made it out on the lake, you want to pick the spot that you want using your depth map, find your ideal location, and you want to drill your hole with whatever you decided to pick up for an ice auger. After you drill your hole, you want to make sure to get all the excess snow and ice out of that hole, clear it out. That way you can drop down your line and make sure everything's out of the way for it to go down properly. So I recommend picking up one of these sounders. It will let the line all the way down to the bottom quick and easily. That way you can figure out how deep it is roughly. Once you hit bottom, you want to mark it with your thumb and use one of those line markers. It could either be the Button, or like I suggested, the Maine Trout Whisperer tackle company, their line markers. You want to move that marker to where the line met the ice. Get that all hooked up. And depending on what you're fishing for, you can either leave it a foot above bottom if you're going after, say lake trout, or you can wind it back up and put it near top if you're going after brook trout. Now that our hole is clear and we know the depth we want to fish at, let's go through the hole setup. So I'm going to grab my bait here. Like I said earlier, I like setting the hook through the dorsal fin. Bring your trap over to the water. Make sure to drop your bait down in. Make sure that it goes down through the hole. There's nothing stopping it. You want it to be able to swim around. Let out the amount of line that you want. Now pull your flag up. And each trap should have some form of trigger mechanism. So you hook that into the trigger, set it back down in the hole, and you are good to fish.
This is the old moose head one too. Oh, she's on there. She's on there. There we go. Getting close now. Salmon. Little salmon. There you go. Awesome. Sweet. Not a bad one. It's a wild one. I want to get to you. Here you go.
Thank you for tuning in and watching. I really hope that this video helps you out, especially if you're just starting out getting into ice fishing. If you're ever in the area and you want to book a guided trip through us, just reach out. You could always go to www.thibodauoutdooradventures.com and book a trip through us. If you could, like and subscribe to the page. Our overall goal for doing the YouTube is to actually help get good information out there to the public, get more information out to the youth, and eventually our goal is to get some proceeds to help bring youth out into the outdoors and give them a better understanding, better education, and hopefully give them the opportunity to experience the outdoors and appreciate it like we do. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have good luck out there.